Welcome to Resilience Unravelled. Hi everybody and welcome to Resilience Unravelled, a podcast that examines all aspects of personal and organisational resilience. A huge all-encompassing subject that covers the ability to thrive in life by harnessing your cognitive, emotional, physiological and contextual abilities. I share stories from people who have thrived despite remarkable obstacles, as well as highly successful practitioners and experts across a range of topics. And this podcast introduces their amazing stories and expertise, as well as my own reflections, perspectives, strategies and tips, which come from my own synthesis of themes and trends from wider learning. You can go to qedod.com/extras to access offers, tools and resources, including free articles and ebooks. For those of you that would be interested in supporting our work and contributing more proactively, you can find our new Patreon page at patreon.com. Then search for Resilience Space Unravelled. So, let's get started. Enjoy the show. So, welcome to Resilience Unravelled. And today I'm talking to someone who I'm really interested to talk to because he's all about weightlifting. And anybody who can see my body can see that I'm a fine figure of a man. But I'm looking at Phil Roberts at the moment on the camera and I'm feeling a bit diminutive, it has to be said. Phil's got his arms out. They're about 8 foot wide. He's got his shoulders out there. You know, he's a fine figure of a guy. So good afternoon to you, Mr. Phil, I suppose I should call you.
What a complimentary entrance, thank you. It must be the camera. The camera must be adding 20 pounds on me or something. That's what I said.
Well, what's happening to mine then? It seems to be knocking 20 pounds off me everywhere but my stomach. So the first thing I can tell from you, Phil Roberts, nice to meet you, is that you're an English guy by the sounds of things. Where in the world are you today?
So I am, for those people that aren't around England, I'm in the middle of England. It's a county called Yorkshire and a town called Sheffield. About 500,000 people, just an old steel city. That's what they call it. Its nickname's the Steel City.
That's right. In the North Midlands.
Well, we'd always refer to it as the North, just the North, not the Midlands. It's a pride thing, that though.
I know, but when you're from Newcastle, you see. Everyone's from the south. Anyway, it's lovely to talk to you. I'm really looking forward to this, and I know you've got some more really interesting stories. So, tell me what it is you do at the moment, then, Phil.
So, at the moment, I am a competitive strongman. That's my first passion. I own a gym as well, and I run a security firm.
So, when you say you're a strongman, what does that mean?
So strongman. I think it originated from basically people, I think it was an American company that got together and basically said, who is the strongest athlete? So what they did is they put a lot of weightlifters together, powerlifters. They had some American footballers, they had some wrestlers, and they put them all up against these very strange competitions where you basically lift a big boulder or you lift a overly sized wheelbarrow or you put a tree trunk above your head and see basically who did it best. And then that was about nearly 40 years ago, I'd imagine. And then it kind of developed into its own sport because it started to get popular. It was on TV a lot. And then basically people said, oh, I like this. I could just do this as a sport. So it gave birth, the TV program gave birth to a sport of its own. And now a lot of people know it from the Atlas stones, picking up the giant round boulders and putting them on platforms or lifting an iron log above the head. Basically, very large people going very red in the face, lifting lots of heavy weights, basically.
And I think I remember seeing this actually quite a long time ago. But there's things like pushing a bus or pulling a bus with your teeth and all this sort of stuff. It's maybe not with your teeth, but you know what I mean.
Luckily, I've not had to pull anything with my teeth because I think my teeth would come out.
You get a harness and you have to pull a bus
yeah. So we have to pull. Basically, maximum weight vehicles. I think the biggest thing they pulled was the jump, a large jet in Wood of the World's Strongest Men. But it's common to see a full lorry with the trailer or a truck with the trailer being pulled along about 20, 30 metres. And it's the fastest time or the ones who could pull it the quickest.
Or the ones who snap in half.
Mm.
So how on earth So tell me a story. How on earth did you get into that then? That seems, of all the career choices in all
Yeah.
the world, what you surely didn't, was this your, like a youngster's ambition or something? Tell me how this all
It
happened.
wasn't. It wasn't quite as a child. I think I wanted to be an astronaut at first.
Yes.
But I was always interested in being big and strong because I was a nervous child. So my idols at the time, my idols were Arnold Schwarzenegger and all the action heroes of the 1980s and 1990s. And they were never afraid of anything. So because they had big muscles. So it was simple to me. I had big muscles. You don't have to be scared of anything. So I progressed that idea and started training, working out from about 12 years old. And it always progressed, always got, it's like a bit of a snowball effect. It got more and more. And I started to get quite good at it. So one of my friends approached me and said, how about, when I was about 20, he said, how about you come and do some strongman training with me? And I was like, well, I've seen it on TV. I never knew you could actually do it as a sport. But yeah, I'll go and give it a go. Be able to prove how strong I am, or how not strong I am at that point in my life, I think it was.
Yeah.
And that's how I got into it.
Okay, so let me unpack a couple of things there, if you would. So you said you're a nervous child, and then you said you did training. So I'm imagining part of your training is physical toning, muscle development. But I mean, one of the great things about sports, the artistic world, all that sort of stuff, is the amount of mental discipline that gets created. So what sort of training did you have on that side of things, or was it just one of those things about failing and learning and failing and learning in the moment?
It was. I think it was. It started out as pride, not in a bad sense, I don't think, but I learned not to give up, and I learned to basically, if I had a target, I would aim to get to that target, and hopefully achieve that target. And then after that, instead of just stopping at that target, setting another small target and progressing from there, and basically learning that if you don't put the effort in, you don't get to your targets. It was very simple. So if I wanted to be the best, which was in my heart at the time, that was the biggest thing in my life, I just gave it everything. I didn't even see it as work because I enjoyed it. But yeah, that's how the mental training came to help me lead with dealing with the situations later on in my life.
So you set a target, you put the work in, you got the feedback from hitting the target, but then you pushed yourself more because actually, Did you learn to love it because you were doing it, or did you do it because you loved it?
I think in that sense, you initially start doing it because you love it,
right?
And then it grows into the other aspects of it as well. And the more you do it, the more you love it. And it's a relationship that almost grows at the same time, because you've always got to set yourself further targets. It's never going to run out. You're never going to get to a point where you say, right, I've achieved it now. I can walk away and that's it. I'll give up now. Yeah. So it's a lifelong sort of. It almost walks alongside you as you walk your life, sort of thing. It's always there with you.
And do you bring that thinking into aspects of life not to do with that sort of competitive sports area?
Yes. So in a business sense, I was actually 22 years old. 21 years old. I became a police officer, and I always wanted to be a police officer during my young adult or early teen life. And I was one of the youngest in my class, and I do believe, because I treat it the same way as I treated my weightlifting, I'd go all in. I'd say, that's the goal, then we go for this goal. And I put a lot of effort in behind the scenes and stuff. So it's quite rare at that time for 21-year-olds to be joining the police. So as you can imagine, once you achieve your goal, wow, that's a pat on your back. Yeah. But with the police, once I'd achieved it, it was like, right, well, where do I go now? Yes. Whereas with the weightlifting, it's a continuous thing. So once you achieve your goal, I joined the police, and it wasn't cracked up to be all that I thought it would be. That's from basically watching RoboCop as a kid too much, maybe. Getting a few delusional ideas of what policing would actually be like. But
hard.
Yeah.
Yes, it's all about learning laws, was it Police and Criminal Evidence Acts and all that sort of stuff, and learning what you can't do.
Basically, you're led by paperwork. If sometimes I remember when we'd catch just a low-level thief or something like that, we'd catch them, and then while you're doing the paperwork, still 5 hours later, we're like, you know what? If they just ran a bit faster, we wouldn't have had to be back here doing all this paperwork. So you trip yourself in the you trip yourself up there.
Yeah. So did you stay in the police, or did you stay in the police and continue your sport, or did one take over the other? What happened then?
Oh, there was only ever one passion. After I joined the police, it was a bit of a delusional dream of mine. It didn't live up to the expectations.
Yeah.
Whereas the weightlifting did. So the first time I actually competed I was in the police from the age of 21 to 29. So I was in for about 8 years.
Oh, so you just didn't give up. You actually stuck at it.
No, yeah, I stuck at it because...
but that's an important thing for people, isn't it? Because a lot of people think that there's a dream, which is the sport or the performance life. And it's like watching the telly, and then you're walking down the street and an agent leaps out and well, hey, but it's not. It's graft, isn't it? And you have to often have another job, or a real job, or a day job, whilst you're putting your work into to becoming an overnight success at 29.
Yeah, I mean, that was the sort of time where I learned that, you know what, life isn't exciting all the time. Sometimes you just have to do stuff for the sake of having to do stuff. And you never know where it's going to pay off later on, because me being in the police, if I'd just been in for, say, 6 months or a year when I actually started to not enjoy it that much, it wouldn't have looked so good on the say, CV for when I started a security firm. Yeah. So now I can refer to myself as managing director of the Titanium 22, and I was actually in the police for 8 years, and I'd got lots and lots of experience in lots of different areas. So it actually benefited me in the time. Whereas while I was in the police at the time, I was quite unhappy.
Yeah.
But now, because I went through that tough patch, I managed to actually it paid off. Even though at the time you just don't think, well, what's the point of doing this? I hate it. It's just a paycheck. But now, looking back on it, I can see why it was there and why I did it and how it's benefiting me now.
And it was, of course, funding your other lifestyle, wasn't it? And a lot of people do jobs they don't really love because actually what they're doing is it's enabling them to do other stuff, isn't it? I had a friend of mine who loathed their job, but they loved it. But it was great because they could finish at 5 o'clock and go scuba diving every night because they were next door to this. And it was as simple as that. They were next door to the deep water pool, and he could get 3 or 4 hours diving every night. And literally that was it. And he hated the job. But it's that thing, isn't it? Sometimes that people don't make those trade-offs, so they don't separate the two things. They just say, well, I'm going to do this easy thing. But if you don't stick to things, you can't do the hard thing, because that mental toughness you've built is, like you're saying, it's applying to both sides of your life, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, it's exactly, it's like a weighing scale. You want to do the fun bit, then you've got to maybe do the mundane stuff that funds that. Like you said, I couldn't, when I first started, I wasn't good enough to be sponsored or anything, so I had to pay for all my equipment, I had to pay for all my protein, I had to pay for my travel to competitions. Even later on, when I was starting to get quite well known, and I actually managed to travel to different countries, the first few times I went, I had to pay for my own airfare and travel and stuff. So, but again, later on, it pays off as long as you stick at that. But I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't just have a grounded job.
And I think for a lot of people, the quandary they get into is knowing to stick to something, but relentlessly stick to it and be miserable. Or what's the point you give up? Because obviously there came a point where you said, I want to leave the police, either to do something else or to carry on with this bodybuilding, strongest man malarkey.
Strong man, yeah.
I'll get there in the end.
Yeah, so, the difference is that bodybuilders look good in skimpy little pants, whereas strongmen, we don't look so good. We've got curves in the wrong places and stuff, so we're not quite as glamorous.
You have to have giant pants.
Yeah.
Okay, so you left the police, and what happened then?
Yeah, so I left the police. The reason I left the police is, as I said, I wasn't happy for a long time. I wasn't happy for potentially over 6 years while I was in the police. And it started to progress and get worse. So another bit in my life, I split up with my fiance at the time. So it kind of all added together, and I said, you know what, enough's enough. You know, it's not worth it anymore. It's making me that unhappy that I have to do something about this. And that was basically start a whole new chapter in my life. And I went and I opened a gym. I opened Titanium Strength Gym. And I had my hands in my head every single night for about nearly the first year, where I wasn't paying myself. Everything was getting reinvested. Yeah. And I had to move back to my parents and live in a single bed for my 30th birthday.
Oh.
So again, that was a relatively low point, but comparing to how unhappy I was towards the end of the police, I was actually happier because I could see that I had a future. Whereas if you can't see that you have a future, so I didn't see myself having a future in the police, so it was never going to get better.
Yes.
But there was always, obviously, I had so much stress running the business by yourself, and it's my own money I invested, so I could have lost it all. But I know that it had potential to take me further places, and I was doing the event that the strongman that actually made me happy. So on a scale of it, yes, it was more stressful, but it was so much, I enjoyed it so much more.
Yeah. But of course, stress can be a good thing as well. So people talk about, stress always being bad. You know, stress is stress. It's you decide whether it's good or bad. So you keep mentioning the word titanium, and you haven't told me more about the sports stuff. So what's the link with titanium?
So titanium, strangely enough, when I came to opening the gym, I think I went through what's the hardest the hardest metal.
Yeah.
And I think it is something. I'm probably wrong here. It's probably something like tungsten. I may be wrong there. Okay, so anyone listening that's smarter than me, that's forgive me. But that didn't sound very good as say it was tungsten. It was tungsten gin. It just didn't have the ring to it. So I looked, what's the second strongest metal, or the second densest metal? And it was titanium. So I thought, ooh, that's got a nice name to it. And that was before the song came out, the famous song of Titanium came out.
I don't know a song called Titanium.
Titanium, I think it's, I can't remember who it's by, but there'll be some of your listeners will recognise it.
Yeah.
And basically, it went from there. And then I liked the idea of building little empires of things. So I opened the gym and called it Titanium Strength Gym. And then as I later got on and started the security firm, went for, why not call this is another security is going to be quite hard and tough. So we went for Titanium 22, which is its number on the element table.
Right.
Titanium 22, that's why it's called Titanium 22.
Ah.
So 22nd element on the table.
Right.
On the chart.
And so what happened to the sports side of things? What's happened to the strongest man thing? Where did you get with that?
Yeah, so I managed to get to England's Strongest Man. I won England's Strongest Man in 2017.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
So thank you. That will always go down in history as I was England's Strongest Man 2017. So the legacy's kind of been left there a little bit. And then the second year, so 2018, the year after that, I came second in UK, and that was at UK's Strongest Man. That's the one you get to see on TV at Christmas time. Yeah. And then I started to go all over the world. I've been to Abu Dhabi, I've been to Finland, I've been to Serbia, been to Romania, been all over basically competing. So at that point in time, I was getting to see the world. I was getting paid to see the world. Yeah. And because I got a sponsorship. So I'm glad to say that the sponsors now he's a good friend of mine. We're good friends now. We speak nearly on a daily occasion. Yeah. But I got to see the world. I was living the dream. I was doing the sport that I loved and went to see the world and got to go on TV. So I had a little bit of like miniature fame. And then in 2019, everything came crashing to a bit of a halt. Right. Quite literally crashing to a halt. That was the time where gravity beat me. What happened was I had a really bad competition. It was at Sheffield Arena, which is an indoor arena holds about 10,000 people, and it was sold out. And it was towards the end of the competition. I'd already had a really bad competition. I'd put on too much weight. I'd gone too heavy, which meant that I lost my mobility. It was an experiment that I was trying. I thought it would pay off, but it didn't. It basically meant I was towards the bottom of the pack, which I'd never really been in this position. I've never done so badly. And I remember thinking, right, well, last event, let's just do this so I can get to the pub and have a few beers to drown my sorrows. And I basically went and did the Atlas stones, the round concrete balls that you pick up and put on platform. Yeah. And as I picked up the fourth one, which was 160 kilos, I missed the ledge, and my leg was wedged in between the platform and the floor. So if you imagine your toes are on the floor and your knee is up against the platform, and the 160 kilo stone dropped from about 6 foot onto my knee, which snapped my tibia and fibula completely in half. And I've got some footage of it, and you can actually hear the crack over a full arena from about 30 meters away. And obviously I remember hearing the crack and thinking, that is very bad. And then the pain kicked.
Yes.
And then the pain kicked in. So I was I remember thinking, wow, this could be a career ender. I think this is me done, and a lot of pain. And basically they took me off to hospital. Obviously, they didn't let me finish the last stone
on one leg.
I'd run out of time anyway. That would have been funny if I'd asked them, wouldn't I? I was like, "Oh, excuse me, how much time?" Before
I go.
No, that wasn't really crossing my mind at that time. And I went to hospital and had the first bit of surgery, and they said, right, well, it's a clean break. It didn't come out of the skin, so you're very lucky, even though your leg's very floppy on the floor. We'll take you into surgery and repair the bone. And as I came, obviously you get put to sleep, and as I came back around, there's a lot of nurses and a couple of doctors stood over me. And I've been in surgeries before. I woke up and I was like, oh, something's not right. Looked down at my leg, and there was actually 4, if you think about masonry bolts, so large masonry bolts that would hold breeze blocks together, sticking out of my leg. There's 4 of them, two above the break, 2 below the break, and there was 4 titanium, ironically, rods.
Well, that's where I thought it was coming from, you see. Go on, carry on. Yeah, I'm fast there, so keep going.
Rods.
Everyone likes a gory injury. Come on. Excellent. We've got 4 boats.
Basically 4 titanium rods bridged together, and they basically said, look, and then I had this humongous wound either side of this, and I just looked down. I was, what is going on here? And they said, look, you've had what we call compartment syndrome, and compartment syndrome is basically your muscle is kept in a sac, and what happens is, because I had such a large muscle mass, the sac was already full. But with the extra swelling of the leg break and the fluids it released, what it was doing, it was so much pressure that it was actually stopping the blood. It was strangling the arteries, taking blood to my foot. And they said, look, you could lose your leg at this point. Worst case scenario, you can die from blood poisoning.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's a bit of a wake-up call. You think, well, I thought it was just a broken leg. I thought you were going to fix it, and then it was going to be okay. And they said, no, for the next 2 weeks, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be working to save your legs. So I had a pump. So what they had to do is they had to slice my leg open from knee to ankle, all the way down. Obviously, if you break the skin that badly, and you have to cut into the muscle as well to break the sac, your muscle is very tight and taut, so it stretches open. So I had 2 gaping wounds either side. There was actually as much wound as there was leg. Well, it felt like.
Yeah.
So they left that open wound for 2 weeks with a pump attached to it, basically trying to get out what I described as I had to walk around with a pump on, like a little handbag around me, and I can only describe it as, it looks like, I hope people aren't eating as they listen to this, but it looks like spaghetti bolognese without the spaghetti, just the bolognese sauce. That's what it looked like, and I had to walk around with this for 2 weeks. Well, I couldn't walk around. I used to have to hobble around or go in a wheelchair for 2 weeks. And then basically came the day they said, look, the swelling's gone down. We can actually fix the bone now. So I've had a skin graft because they can't stitch it back up because the skin got too stretched.
Yeah.
So I've actually had skin graft all over my leg, but so that would be the end of any modelling career I had. I'd never had any from the first place because unfortunately I'm not good looking enough to be a model, so I wasn't missing out on anything, and I wasn't getting sponsored by IMAC or anything, so I didn't have lovely smooth legs. So there's no great loss for me there. I don't mind a nasty scar.
But what's happened to the knee though? Is the knee okay?
Yes, surprisingly, the knee basically put all the force into the tibia and fibia, so it didn't actually take much of the brunt. It was just all the energy was expelled in the breaking of the tibia and fibia.
Wow.
But that basically, I was in what we call a Lizaroff frame, an external fixator, for 4.5 months to refix it, and that I can only describe as one of the most painful experiences ever. It's basically, if you think about it, what it is, it's an external fixator which basically they screw. I think there was 24 screws in my leg that were holding it in place, holding the bones in place. But your flesh moves around this, so every time if you think about it, the calf muscle was like a kebab on a barbecue stick. So it slide down and slide back up, and it was it's not fun even thinking about it. But I'm smirking to myself now because I know that it's all over and done with, and I don't have to do it again. So it's
so I'm guessing then, because the fact that you're sitting me talking to me today, I'm guessing that those mental strategies you learned from being a kid have helped you through this, because it's exactly the same process recovering from the illness in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, also what happened is I was very popular. I was very popular. I always had a little group around me. People wanted to be around me because I was doing so well. And when the leg break came, a lot of people kind of just tossed me aside. They didn't do it straight away. They didn't say, "Oh, Phil, by the way, now you broke your leg and you're not doing very well at strongman. I don't want to be your friend." It's kind of, you don't hear from them as much, and then when you contact them or you try to contact them, they're not as enthusiastic about seeing you. So you start to learn that actually people were there for one thing and for themselves, to glorify themselves.
Yeah.
And I actually, during this time, I did find it very hard, even though I had the training of never surrender, don't give up, always have a goal, make sure you have a goal. But at the same time, I actually did start going to church and I became a Christian, which it'd been a long thing for me. It'd been, I'd always thought there was a God there, and basically it came to a head when a lot of people left me, and I was left with nothing else. So I learned that maybe God was the only one that stuck around there fully.
It's a thing I hear a lot with people who've gone through injuries, and especially people who, being in the sporting world in particular, there's this sort of crowd of flies around people, and they sort of buzz off and find another place to hang around, don't they? And I'm pleased you found something, because actually, it's whatever helps, isn't it? And if you'll find solace and purpose and such like in that place, then why not? No one can judge you for something that works for you.
No, exactly. And basically, you just, I learned, obviously you had really bad days. You had really bad days when the pain was bad. And I don't think you can do anything to avoid those bad days. But the days where you're feeling okay, that's when the days you make progress. So that's when I started, when we started doing the business plans for Titanium 22. So to keep yourself motivated, even if it wasn't successful, I mean, it's doing well now. We're glad to say it's doing quite well. But even if we weren't successful, it was still something at that time to do. And I did have a couple of other business ideas during the time, and they didn't come to anything. But you know what? I was glad I did them, even though I put the effort in and there was no reward financially for it. It still kept my mind occupied, kept myself busy.
It's driving you forward, isn't it? Giving you a sense of purpose almost.
Yeah. But you do get days. You get, and you have to actively, in my opinion, when I look back and think, why did that happen? Why did this have to happen? If I'd just done this, I'd always say, if you can't change something, why bother thinking about it? Because you're only beating yourself up, and then that reflects. So you beat yourself up, so your self-esteem goes down, and then your low self-esteem gets infected onto other people, and then other people realise, you know what, he's not a very nice person to be around anymore. He's not fun, and even your closest friends will basically eventually turn away from you, not because they're being nasty or anything, but because your negativity it gets too much. So what you have to do in that situation, I had to snap out of it. Yes, I'd have a day or two where I'd felt miserable, but then after that, I'd snap out of it and see what I could do and push myself forward, like you said.
And that's our key, isn't it? I mean, people don't understand how much planning really helps you. That projection into the future, it's so powerful. So Phil, it's a brilliant story. So you're going to write a book?
I'm a strong man. I don't know which way the pencil goes. So
I'll tell you something. There's this new invention. You don't need a pencil anymore.
Really? Well, I'd only just discovered pencils. It was chalkboards and all that. So,
no, but seriously, I think it's a brilliant story. It's massively inspirational. You've got a ton of really interesting lessons in there. If people would like to find out more about your story, how can they find you online?
I'd say the best way to find me is maybe on Instagram or Facebook. Instagram is it's Phil Titanium Roberts, and Facebook, unfortunately, is a lot harder to find because it's just Phil Roberts, plain old me. But I will be lifting a weight and probably purple in the face, and like I said, not the face of a model, but a rather large person, should we say.
Very good. It's brilliant. Thank you so much for spending time with us today, Phil. I think it's a brilliant story and tons and tons and tons of, really useful things people can take away. I think the way you think is it's so clear. It really is very helpful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. And if anyone does think that I can help them, and then feel free to contact. It's absolutely fine. I'll always get back to people, but it just may not be straight away.
Thanks for spending time with us today. You take care.
You take care, mate. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I hope you found that episode useful and interesting. Feedback is always welcomed, and if you are in the mood to subscribe to us or even leave a comment on iTunes or Stitcher, that would be amazing. If you want to suggest ideas or even people you would like me to interview, then reach out to us at qedod.com/contact. As I said earlier, you can go to qedod.com/podcasts for show notes or follow the links. And you can go to qedod.com/extras to access offers, tools and resources, including free articles and ebooks. For those of you that would be interested in supporting our work and contributing more proactively, you can find our new Patreon page at patreon.com. Then search for Resilience Unravelled. I look forward to being in your ear next time around. Take care.